Hello, everybody. Road Warrior 627 here, back with you for another thoroughbred racing preview on my channel. Today, we're going to be previewing the most overhyped race in the history of races, the Kentucky Derby, and it's September 1st. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, coronavirus happened. We get it. But we do have a Kentucky Derby. We almost have 20 horses. We have 18. Unfortunately, Art Collector had to come out today. But we had a last minute entry, so we have an 18 horse field to contest this new 20 horse starting gate, which I heard has had a problem earlier today. Hopefully, it doesn't have a problem on Derby Day itself. But analyzing these horses is a big task, and I certainly cannot do it alone. So I have today three special guests to analyze this mile-and-a-quarter contest at Churchill Downs. Race number 14, by the way, the last of 14, going off at an abysmal 7:01 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. My guests are Sammy Roseman. What else is new?
Nothing. Just handicapping the Kentucky Derby in September. That does not make a lot of sense.
I hope this never happens again. We've got Nathan, otherwise known as Sketchy the Horse Guy.
Peekaboo! What is up, guys?
And we've got Jack Sargent of the Racing Rundown podcast.
I will add one thing onto the Kentucky Derby thing. If anyone's interested, maybe Andrew can link it in his video, but I wrote a blog absolutely berating Churchill Downs for the decision to postpone the Kentucky Derby. So just adding my opinion on that. I wrote that about an hour after the decision to not have fans was published. So if anyone's interested in that, if Andrew wants to put it in his
I will, because it's excellent.
Video.
It's an excellent piece, and I couldn't have agreed any more with it. So we are going to be going through the field, the entire field 1 through 18 in here. We all know who's probably going to win, but we'll talk about all of them anyway. All right, Sammy, start us off with number 1.
Number 1 in the 2020 Kentucky Derby is Finnick the Fierce. One of two horses to ever cross in front of Tiz the Law in the Kentucky Jockey Club. 87-1. He's a deep closer. He likes to have the pace. He's a deep closer. He's going to come off the pace. If he gets the pace to run into, I think he can get some pieces to run into and maybe hit the board. But other than that, I don't know what else to say. Anybody else knows what to say with Finnick the Fierce?
Just a bit of a correction. Finnick the Fierce doesn't really strike me as much of a closer as you say he is. Like, I think in the Arkansas Derby, he was actually he was 4th or 5th, not necessarily early. So I wouldn't say he's as much of a deep closer as a few other horses in this field. I think that so a horse like Mr. Big News is more of a closer than him. But that's just me, and I don't like him.
I actually do have a lot of very nice things to say about Finnick the Fierce. One thing to mention, though, he has not crossed the wire first in a race this year, which, if you're looking for him as a horse to put, say, for a win, that may not be the most attractive thing. He was put up in a race. It was actually won by Winning Impression, who is another horse that is not coming into the Kentucky Derby off of very stellar efforts. But as Sammy already mentioned, the only horse to beat Tiz the Law, he was a half length away from being the winner of that race. The winner that day was Silver Prospector. But the point that I'm making with Finnick the Fierce is if you're looking for a horse that is going to come from the back, and that is definitely what he's going to be doing in the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. And if you go back and you look at the history, and actually in preparing for my preview, one of the reasons why I picked Country House last year in the Kentucky Derby, if anyone doesn't know, I did use Country House underneath. Looking at the history of the Kentucky Derby, you're always going to have these closers running better than their odds are. Finnick the Fierce is going to be really, really big odds because he only has one win this year, and he has not been winning stakes races. If you're looking for that kind of a horse to use in, say, a try or a superfecta, Finnick the Fierce is definitely one that you're going to want to take a consider at. Because he's going to be huge odds, and he's run well in several stakes in the past. We already mentioned the Kentucky Jockey Club. I think his best race this year was his 3rd in the Arkansas Derby, where he was beaten by Nadal and King Guillermo, who are both very highly regarded horses, and we'll get to King Guillermo later on when we talk about this. Keeneland's not a very closer favoring track, so that could, and it looked like at the top of the stretch he had a chance to close in and maybe finish a good third or a fourth in bluegrass. Ultimately didn't happen. I think he'll get a better kind of setup in this race, and he'll like the surface more. He's obviously done well over Churchill Downs, so I would not say he's a win contender, but definitely a horse. If you're playing a super or a trifecta, you're going to want to look at him because he does fit the bill of a horse that at huge odds is going to fill out something like that at a big price.
I think he definitely can, Jack. I just don't want him in here. I think he's just a little too slow, and I feel like I'm going to say that 12 times today. Aside from Lee Davis and Peter Rotundo Sr. having bets on this horse, I can't necessarily recommend him. Let's move on to Linda Rice's number 2, Max Player. Oh, wait, not Linda Rice? Oh, yeah. They got rid of his jockey. Now they got rid of his trainer. What's going on with Max Player?
Max Player, he just fits the horse that's probably going to run big. I think Ricardo is going to put him not near the back, but I think he's going to be kind of where Country House was last year, 8th, 9th. He's been working very well at Churchill. He seems to get over the track very nicely. And that Travers, he started to pick up some ground. Just was never getting to Tiz the Law. He's not Tiz the Law, but I think he can get a piece in this race.
Yeah, he does seem kind of like a sudden breaking news kind of horse, or Dullahan. Maybe not as extreme as those, but that kind of horse who's flying late to get some good placings.
And there's a lot of comparisons. Those were two very good comparisons to past horses that have been made for Max Player. And Max Player is going to be another one of those horses that is going to be coming late. And, if you're playing a super or a trifecta, you're going to want to look at him very possibly. I'm going to choose to look against him just because I think that I can find some better odds higher. That's where in this Kentucky Derby you're going to probably most likely find your value is underneath with the third and fourth place runners. And Max Player is definitely one. He's never been worse than third. He has 2 wins, including a win and a stake at Aqueduct, the Withers. 2 good seconds in grade 1s behind Tiz the Law in the Travers and the Belmont. Dr. Post was a very highly regarded horse, ultimately passed up the Kentucky Derby, but ran a good third behind him in the Belmont, and then a good third behind Caracaro, who was probably the best horse in his stakes debut this year, the Peter Pan at Saratoga. Just wasn't able to get there off the layoff. Caracaro ran a very good second in the Travers. So, there's a lot of upside with Max Player. I ultimately chose not to use him, but there's definitely cases to be made to use him.
And I am going to use him in here. I like Max Player. If you look at the Brisnet numbers, and this is something I never knew before I started to use Brisnet earlier this year, but these prime numbers are actually very telling. And he's got the 3rd highest prime power rating in here of 146.1. Now that's 15 points behind Tiz the Law. He was also 3rd behind Tiz the Law in both the Belmont and the Travers, as mentioned. He's got class. He's been running in big races, and he's been hitting the board in big races. I don't see why he can't do it again. Like I said when we first talked about Finnick the Fierce, I don't like a lot of horses in here. I think he towers above most of this field as a great candidate to fill out your triple, and that's exactly where I have him. I have him 3rd in here. Let's move on to number 3. And number 3 is Enforceable.
Enforceable. Adams Beskija, I think. Beskija, I think it is. I don't even know. I forgot it now. But this is his first Derby mount. The one thing I will say about Enforceable is he likes to close. And you're going to finally get good odds on him. You're probably going to get about 45 to 1, 40 to 1 maybe. Say around there. But you can hit the board. And if he gets that piece to run into, I think he can come second. He's also a rare one. You don't see many May horses from last year running the Derby in those 5 furlong sprint races.
I don't really like him, honestly. he just doesn't really impress me. He had the Lecomte, he had the Risen Star, and since then he's just been unimpressive. I don't have much faith in him.
And I'm going to completely contradict that. Enforceable is a horse that I am really high on. Looking at some of his races, I'm not going to look at some of his early 2-year-old races because, like Sammy said, those were earlier in the year for 2-year-olds to start running. So, I see stuff that Enforceable has done recently. Third in the Breeders' Futurity, he was never going to get to Maxfield that day. Maxfield was much the best in that race. Fourth in the Kentucky Jockey Club over this track. The one race that I look at and don't love that he's running, but the Lecomte won that. Second in the Risen Star, complete line through race in the Louisiana Derby. That was a merry-go-round. And what I mean for anyone who isn't familiar with that term, because I'm not sure if that's as wide. I use it regularly on my show. The first 2 horses in that race, if you remember back a long time ago, back in March of the Louisiana Derby, Wells Bayou and New York Traffic were 1-2 in that race. They were 1-2 the entire portion of the race. They set very slow paces, and none of those horses coming from the back were ever going to be able to get them. But for closers, that was a very good effort for horses that didn't have any pace to close into and still closed really well. Enforceable was 5th in that race. When we get to Major Fed, I'm going to make the same point. But those horses didn't have anything to close into in the Louisiana Derby, and they ran very good races. That's a better than advertised 5th place finish in the Louisiana Derby. Last effort, the Bluegrass was never going to get to Art Collector and Swiss Skydiver. Keeneland, as I've already mentioned, is not a very easy track to close into, and he closed really, really good for it being Keeneland. I was very impressed by that 4th place finish. I'm definitely going to use him underneath, and I think if you get him at that 40-1, 45-1 range, which you're most likely going to, and you may even get higher, he is 100% a horse that, and the other thing about him is he does not need a pace setup to run into. Louisiana Derby, I already mentioned, he closed into a 112 very nicely. Closed into a 112 in the Risen Star when he finished 2nd behind Mr. Monomoy. Closed into a very slow pace in Lecomte. This horse does not need pace to run into to run well. He's probably going to get faster than he has in any of his recent stakes races. He's definitely going to run better than he did in those, and I'm definitely going to use him underneath.
Now, Jack, you mentioned that Louisiana Derby. You're giving me nightmares because I bet New York Traffic in that race to win. So you're killing me. Here's the thing with Enforceable. I think he's been very consistent lately. I like the consistent figures. I think he's just a tier below this field. I'm looking for a greater potential in here to run a big race from a long shot, and he just does not stick out enough to me. I do like the closing into a slow pace angle. Maybe if I give it more thought, I'd put him 5th and try and beat some of the other favorites that we'll talk about later to get into the 5th spot. I don't know. Do they have super high 5s at the Derby? Does anybody know?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, so maybe you can use him for 5th. I don't like him as part of my super, but I totally respect what Jack said.
I will say something. I remember the last name is Beskiza. Beskiza. It's Beskiza. That's what it is. For anybody that calls me stupid, I know what it is now.
That's fantastic, Sammy. Let's move on to, and I'm going to throw up saying this, last year's 2-year-old champion stormed the court. Ugh.
You can make a better case for Tiz the Law getting that Eclipse Award with a loss.
Yes, that's what I was telling Sammy before we started. I told him that before we started the show.
For anyone who doesn't think that if that horse wins the Kentucky Jockey Club, he's 2-year-old champion, and it's not even close. You saw, just a very, very quick aside, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but you saw how biased the Eclipse Award voters are to dirt horses when neither of the really talented grass horses last year.
I think Structure should have got it. That's who my vote would have been, or Tiz the Law.
That's who I said in my Eclipse Award predictions, and I knew that was the one Eclipse Award prediction that I knew was going to be wrong, but I wanted to say it anyway because I did not like Tiz the Law or respect him.
I mean, if I can just pick up on how bad that Breeders' Cup if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to tear into that Breeders' Cup Juvenile
field
right now.
Please do it.
only one horse from that race has come
Full
back
Flat.
to win, and that was the Japanese horse Full Flat, and he won a race overseas. None of the other horses from that Breeders' Cup Juvenile have won a race in the United States, and the only race where a horse from that Breeders' Cup looked competent this year was Storm the Court in the La Jolla, and that was a race on the grass. Storm the Court seemed like he was trending towards, making the transformation over to grass. He's got a grass pedigree. He's by Breeders' Cup Mile winner, Court Vision. So it seemed like that he was trending there, but they had the points from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, decided to take the shot. I can't fault them for taking the shot with this horse, but this horse, we've known this probably since the moment after he crossed the wire in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That was a complete line through race. Like I mentioned, none of the horses have come back from that race to do anything. No wins, and I don't know what the in the money percentages are that, but several horses have bombed. 8 Rings has bombed. Anodor has bombed a few times, and Storm the Court has bombed. So, that is the stats in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile are not pretty, and this is definitely, some people are saying that this is the worst Breeders' Cup Juvenile ever, and you can definitely make that case. Storm the Court is a complete pass for me. Very easy toss, and it's weird to toss a 2-year-old champion when they hadn't historically Breeders' Cup Juvenile 2-year-old champions for prior to 2015 had not been running great in the Kentucky Derby, and we had been as of recently getting good efforts from 2-year-old champions, but this is not going to be a year where we get a good effort from a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Eclipse Award winner. So Storm the Court, complete toss for me.
One thing I think we should also keep in mind is that Court Vision did run in the Kentucky Derby. He sucked. He only came into the race because he won the Remsen Stakes at age 2. So his father had the same sort of storyline as Storm the Court, and we all know how it's going to end.
For me, like what Jack said, they have the points, so they're gonna go. They're trying to find something where this horse is gonna win. That's what they're trying to do, and they're just here. They just want to take their shot here, but they go to 3-year-old career, 3-year-old season. I'll give you a pass against Nadal. He still shouldn't have finished 4th out of 6, but I'll give you a pass there. Authentic and NYRA, I'll give you a pass there. I'll give you a pass in Arkansas Derby, but once the Ohio Derby, if you really want to win the Kentucky Derby or be serious, you got to win the Ohio Derby. You can't be losing to Dean Martini, who just came out of a maiden claiming.
As you can tell from my original comment, I'm not touching this horse. Moving on, number 5 is Major Fed.
He has the best post position, and he's a great late closer, so I like this horse. I mean, historically, post position number 5 has always been very good, and if you saw him in the Louisiana Derby, he was last out of 14 horses, and he made a great charge for 4th. Like, it looks bad on paper, but if you really look at it, and see how he managed to usurp 10 horses throughout the entire thing, I find it impressive. I like him.
Major Fed, he's been training well. I remember he was my Louisiana Derby pick. Wasn't he yours? Wasn't that your Louisiana Derby pick, Jack? If I'm remembering correctly.
I don't believe I picked him to win the Louisiana Derby, but I could be wrong.
Second. I think over there. But I thought he was going to run well in the Louisiana Derby. What Nathan said, he made a good move. He was well behind them, but he had no chance in that race when you let New York Traffic and Wells Bayou just loose. And they're, 5 lengths to 3rd place? It was over by then. But he's Indiana Derby. I would have liked him to close a little bit more and not get passed by Shared Sense by that much. But he's a contender. If you want to get a good price, you're probably gonna get about 50 to 1, 60 to 1.
And I already talked a lot about this when I talked about Enforceable. Same thing applies to Major Fed with that Louisiana Derby, except more impressive because, like those two already mentioned, he was farther back than Enforceable was. He had nothing to run into. He still ran 4th. The Matt win, he definitely had a ton of trouble in that race. I can, not necessarily draw a line through it, but I can look past the 10th place finish. I think he was better than last on that day. I am concerned by the Indiana Derby, but I don't think that this horse is ever a win contender here. I would really like if I'm betting this race and purely trying to find a long shot that has had a good history of closing, 2 really good races closing with a Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby. He's going to be big odds. I considered him very deeply. He was among the 3 or 4 big, huge long shots that I considered using. I ultimately decided to pass on him because I think I can get a little bit more consistency with some horses that are going to be similar odds to him. But I can definitely respect using him underneath because I think that he will rebound from that 10th place finish and the Matt win. And, I think the Indiana Derby, well, we know he's not going to win big races like this. He's definitely a contender to finish in the money. And it is also worth mentioning he doesn't need a pace to run into. Very, very similar case with Enforceable.
I will say something about the Indiana Derby. Also, even though I didn't mention it yet, but that was James Graham's first time on him, so he's getting used to horse. I think he made his move a little bit too early because he went from the half mile to the stretch and he gained 3.5 lengths, and then he faded a little bit in the stretch. I just think if he just goes little, if he makes his move a little later, I think he has a chance to run in the money, hit the board, run 4th, 5th. But when you get 60 to 1, you have to consider him for sure.
I think there are better long shots in here. Move on.
Number 6, King Guillermo. Everybody's wise guy horse. It was Cheryl's Spite, but that horse is out. I'll say people are going to be concerned about the 4-month layoff, but he's proven he can handle the layoff. He's done it already, and he's been training well. And I think 20 to 1 morning line, that's a little bit too high in my opinion. That might just be me, but 20 to 1. If you get 20 to 1, I'll take that. But you don't see horses at 50 to 1 draw off by 5 lengths if they have no talent. And then he backed it up, ran second to people who considered a top 3-year-old in a doll. So, what do you guys take on King Guillermo?
I do agree that he does have some potential. I like him. He's going to be either on the lead or right behind the leaders, and that is a good way to get out of trouble. But it's really all about the start. Like, post position number 6 is actually not nearly as good of a post position as number 5 statistically. I'm not going to look too far into post positions, but it is something to consider, like, since he needs to get to the front.
I will add to that. I will immediately preface this by saying I'm using him second to Tiz the Law. I have really been impressed with King Guillermo. Like Sammy already mentioned, the layoff does not concern me. Sammy mentioned had a 3rd place up in the Pulpit Stakes at Gulfstream back in November, came back, ran the best start of his life on dirt, won the Tampa Bay Derby, backed it up against Nadal. He does have a very good post position in 6, and ignoring statistics for a minute, he's going to get a very good rail trip because all the speed in this race drew outside of him. Near traffic, authentic, those horses are outside of him. So he's going to have a very advantageous trip in this race. And, like I already mentioned, super talented in here. Sammy already mentioned, horse doesn't win the Tampa Bay Derby the way he did if he doesn't have potential. The one thing that I will say about him is he definitely does fit the bill of a really good horse that runs, a better than average 6th or 7th place finish. But I've really liked him since his effort in the Tampa Bay Derby. So I'm going to stick by that, and I'm going to say that I will use him second to Tiz the Law in the race, just because I really do have, the respect for the overall talent that this horse has. And one more point I will make is that I think since he was 50 to 1 and no one had really heard of him in the Tampa Bay Derby, if this was a horse who was, lower double digits, like a 10, 15 to 1, and he did what he did and then did what he did in the Arkansas Derby, this would be a horse that would be getting a lot more consideration. On the morning line would definitely be a lot lower. He is definitely going to be some good value, though. The scratch of Art Collector takes away some of his potential value, but you probably still will get some good price on him because the top 3 in this race are definitely going to take a ton of money. With all that being said, like I already mentioned, really like this horse.
I don't really like this horse. I feel like, once again, there's just better long shot options out there. I feel like in almost all his races, he's either been sitting off, just off, or he's been getting pretty easy trips up near the lead. His speed figures. He doesn't show that one fast race. Again, I mentioned before, potential. That's why you're going to see me use a horse like New York Traffic, who's run a big speed figure, before I use a horse that's been running high 90s and low hundreds as far as Brisnets are concerned. Also, don't you think this horse is going to get played a little bit, considering who owns him? NBC is going to flood the airwaves with Victor Martinez owns this horse. And anybody that's casual and has an online account and is a regular sports fan that's watching the Kentucky Derby, are they not just going to jump right on that? I feel like this is the horse that might take the most sentimental money. If he was 30 to 1, fine. He's 20 to 1 on the morning line, and I don't think you're getting that.
That is a very fair point that Andrew just made, and I think his point of you're not going to get 20 to 1 definitely is amplified by our collector not being here, so there's not that other really high-level horse taking a bunch of money. I think him and New York Traffic are very similar, and I think that's a good comparison. I ultimately thought New York Traffic may take a little bit more money because I personally have seen more people saying he's their wise guy horse, but that's just my perspective, and I can definitely respect that.
Yeah, I just like New York Traffic because I think he's better. But we'll get to that later. Number 7 is Money Moves for the Toddster.
I've been very high on this horse.
I really don't like this horse. He doesn't even deserve to be in it. He didn't even run in a Kentucky Derby prep. He only is able to get in because no one's interested in the Derby. I just don't think he's worthy of even being in if he has not ran in a stakes race at all. Like, what?
I disagree. I think he deserves to be in the Kentucky Derby. He lost. They put him in a race off the layoff, which was March to July, which is about 4 months. Maybe 4. They had 16 weeks off. He comes and faces older horse, and he loses by a neck closing to a horse that's pointing to the woodward. And he almost got him. I think he's gonna like the distance. He's bred to run the distance. And 30 to 1, I think he's gonna get played a little bit because of Pletcher. But I feel like he's not at his full potential yet. I think this might be a little bit too high to run him here before stakes, but I think he deserves to be in the race, so why not take your shot?
I kind of share the same sentiment with Sammy. I don't think that this horse is, I don't think he's at his full potential yet. I'm not sure the Derby's in his wheelhouse at this point, but he is talented in some facet, and that was a good second to older horses in an allowance last start. But for me, just too unproven, and I just think there's better routes to go. But he definitely is a talented horse, and we can talk about whether or not any of these 0 points horses are here. I will make this point. Money Moves is definitely more talented than some of the second place finishers in Kentucky Derby prep races that we've seen in the past. So, he definitely does have the talent to belong in the Kentucky Derby.
I think he's fine, and people will bring up Justify. I just don't want a horse running in his his 4th career race in the Kentucky Derby right now. Second off a layoff, that time at Saratoga, and he didn't even win the race, wasn't that good over a fast track. Now, the Saratoga mile and eighth races haven't exactly been fast, but 150 in your last race before the Kentucky Derby. This isn't April, folks. This is the middle of the summer. Too slow to me. Sorry.
Number 8. I'm going to go to number 8. Number 8 is South Bend. He joined last minute. I think they were putting an American turf, but it's a once in a lifetime. That's what they like to say. Once in a lifetime. You have a live chance of Derby. Take your shot, especially after that. huge speed figure guy anymore, but that 105 is nice, and that fits right into the race. 2 for 3 at Churchill, which also helps on the main track. He kind of, in my opinion, needs a pace to run into.
I like him just because of his great late kick. Like the Ohio Derby, he had a lot of good, he showed that he still had a lot of horse by the end of it. I don't know, that kind of just made me think, hey, he could be he could pull off something like that and get some late. He could maybe do a commanding curve, maybe not something like that, or Golden Soul, where he comes home late and gets a really surprising finish because of his late speed. Maybe not something that extreme, but you know what I'm talking about.
He was ultimately a look against for me. Like I mentioned, there's some other long shots that I like more, and I think that I think there are horses that are more proven than this one. But I think I'm not going to make speculate on which race would be better for him, or which surface, excuse me, would be better for him, turf or dirt. He does have two good efforts in graded stakes races. The fourth in the Travers was not bad. The 3 horses that finished ahead of him are all really good horses in their own right. Obviously, Tiz the Law towers over the other 2 that were second and third, but good 4th place finish for him. But ultimately, there are better options for me.
I'm almost in complete agreement with Jack, and I picked this horse third back in the Travers. I actually had Tiz the Law over Max Player over South Bend, and Caracaro screwed up that straight triple, unfortunately. South Bend, I tell you what, I don't believe that speed figure. I really don't. I think that's way, way too high. To what he ran. He kind of, to me, he made up a little bit of ground down the backstretch and into the turn, and then as Tiz the Law just kind of drew off. I don't know. I love Bill Mott, but I can't see this horse getting close.
9, Mr. Big News, also a late entry. This horse, they were pointing to a turf race. He's bred to run the distance. The turf might be his right surface. I just don't know what to think of this horse. He feels like a horse that would run 12th.
Let's interject. I really like this horse. The big thing though is I'm only using this horse if it's sloppy. If there's a sloppy track on Derby Day, I'm using this horse all the friggin' way.
It's not sloppy. It's gonna be fast.
We don't know that yet. We don't know that until the day because it's been raining recently at Kentucky. But if there is still a chance that, like, if it's fast, then I'm probably not going to use him. But if it is at least even a bit sloppy, I'm going with Mr. Big News because if you saw his win the Oaklawn Stakes, he was near dead last, surged past 10 horses, and won at 80-1, and he did it under a fast pace. So he could maybe if the pace is fast enough, he won't even need the mud. But mud at a fast pace, you got Mr. Big News running big.
I think Mr. Big News is an angle you can definitely make for another one of those classic big odds running from behind. He's definitely going to be higher than he was in the Oaklawn Stakes. The question would be, would he be able to back that up? I don't necessarily dislike the effort that he had in the Bluegrass. I gave Finnick the Fierce a bit of a pass. I'd be willing to give him a pass also. If it completely melts down, which I don't think it's going to completely melt down, the pace up front, obviously we'll talk about when we get to some of the speed horses, but I think he has a chance to do that if everything melts down. But I said this in my profile of him. I don't like a horse when I have to say if certain situations happen that he may have a chance. There's other horses that I can be more definite of, like some of the ones that I already mentioned. So the only thing that would attract me to him is the fact that he's going to be super high, probably in your. I don't like to make odds projections because I have no concept of how people are going to bet on race day, but you may get him at 60, 65, maybe even 70, and I would definitely love that in terms of just odds. So if I'm playing this race from purely the perspective of I want a huge number, this would definitely be a horse I'd look at. I like the Oaklawn Stakes effort. I don't necessarily think it was only a slop thing. He definitely did have a really good pace to run into. The top 3 horses all kind of took each other out, and If that happens in the Kentucky Derby, then and all hell breaks loose up front, then maybe Mr. Big News can run a big race, but I don't like maybes. So for me, ultimately, he was a pass.
Jack, you hit the nail on the head. I don't like maybes. That's pretty much why I've thrown these last 6 horses out, and I'm going to throw out Mr. Big News as well. I just see nothing that jumps off the page. And being that we're halfway through, I know somebody mentioned it. You guys keep bringing up if there's a fast pace, he's going to be closing late. What do you guys think, just before we get to the speed horses, because there are a few coming up later in the field. Give me some fresh for this race, because I don't think the pace is going to be that fast.
I don't think it's going to be a meltdown. I don't think anyone's going to be out there itching to get into a pace duel with Authentic, who definitely is going to be the horse that goes to lead. And, as we've seen the past couple weeks, I'm sure Andrew has documented either in some of his videos or on Twitter, we've been seeing jockeys hand out easy leads in a lot of stakes races, specifically up in New York. We've been seeing those get handed out. Like I made the comparison, like Oprah hands out cars on her show. So I think it's probably going to be moderate around a 111, something like that. I don't think it's going to be 2013 where Palace Malice just goes out there and takes out half the front end, and it just opens it up for everyone. Which is why I'm leaning more towards horses that can close into moderate to slow paces, because I don't think the pace is going to be as fast as some people do. So I think around the 111 range, maybe closer to 111 and 2 as opposed to 111 and 4. But I don't think it's going to be a lightning speed.
I'm with you, 47, 111. That's my thoughts for the half and for the 3/4 mark going into the far turn. Sammy, Nathan, do you have any thoughts on the pace scenario?
I do agree that it's probably not going to be super fast because, we have Authentic up front and 1,000 Words, but King Guillermo, more of a stalker. Besides that, I don't really remember many other particular pacers. Or not pacers, obviously, this isn't standard bred racing, but pace setters. Everyone else is just hoping on the other horses to go fast.
1,000 Words. Number 10 is 1,000 Words at 15-1. I believe it's the 4th choice or 5th? 4th choice, right? Crazy to say 15-1 shot as your 4th choice in the Kentucky Derby.
No, but you're right.
1,000 Words. I remember when, this might be off topic, but I remember when the article came out that nobody from California wanted to ride this horse. That just made me laugh a little bit. Sorry.
Why? Did he have a bad attitude?
No, nobody wanted to leave California to ride this horse. They wanted to stay where they were.
Oh. Well, for me, toss. I don't like him.
He's gonna be front. He's gonna be near the lead. He got a great trip. That job. Abel Cedillo is so underrated. He really is. He's a really good rider.
Yes. He kind of comes off to me as more of a short rider, but even then, one big worry I have is that he's going to be the California horse archetype that can only do well in California. Also, his only attempt outside of California, he was 10th.
Yeah, and you can give him a break there because what happened was he stumbled at the start and his face hit the ground. So that's just the Oaklawn Stakes is just a throw out for me.
If I can interject here, this is just a horse who, you mentioned the excuse that he had in the Oaklawn Stakes, and that's fine. But this is a horse who's his last 2 races are super inflated because and I'm not a big person that likes to emphasize, well, this horse hasn't beaten good horses, so that doesn't mean that they're a top level contender. But this is a horse whose runs have been absolutely inflated by his competition. He beat Honor AP, which is why he's getting the respect that he's getting. But, that was in a 4-horse field, and the 2 horses who were running behind him. Kiss Today Goodbye is under no consideration by any stretch of the imagination a good racehorse. Prior to the Shared Belief Stakes, Kiss Today Goodbye ran last in, I believe it was a maiden race that he ran in prior to that. Race before that, another 4-horse field, where he lost to Uncle Chuck, who got throttled by Tiz the Law and the Travers, and the two horses that he beat behind him were not good. Were not good horses and have not really come back to do anything else. The San Felipe was fourth in that race, but the number 4 on the chart looks a lot better than that race actually was. He was very well beaten. The 3 horses he beat behind him, calling them allowance horses would be, I think, too generous. Wrecking Crew, Fort McHenry, and Swag Stational, all 3 of those horses, you can make the argument that they belong
Too
at play
generous.
level.
Fort McHenry ran like last in the 8,000 claimer.
Yeah, well, and Wrecking Crew also from that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, carrying on the legacy of how bad it was. The Oaklawn Stakes, I don't think he was going to win that race, even with a good trip. I think that there are just better horses in there than him. I don't necessarily think that Mr. Big News and Farmington Road, maybe you can make a case for that, but I just don't think that 1,000 Words is the level that he would have run a winning effort in that race. And after the Oaklawn Stakes, everyone was kind of off this horse, and then he ran the good race in the Los Alamitos Derby, beat Honor AP. I think that race, I don't think that was a fluke, but, we'll get to this when we talk about Honor AP. I've never been the biggest Honor AP fan, and I don't think 1,000 Words had any business beating Honor AP, but he only beat him by 3/4 of a length, again, against 4-horse field. Kiss Today Goodbye and Saison are not horses that I think are anything spectacular. He was a complete pass for me. Just nothing has shown, and it is worth mentioning his 2 stakes wins. Los Alamitos Futurity, thank God that race is no longer Grade 1, because he would have had a Fool's Gold Grade 1 win over, again, aforementioned Wrecking Crew. Anno Dor, already mentioned, he bombed a few times, and High Velocity never panned out after he won a Bob Hope. So, not a couple Fool's Gold Stakes wins in the Los Alamitos Futurity. Robert Lewis wasn't that good. Shared Belief, when you really deconstruct it, was not a good race. So this horse, even though he is a 2-time graded stakes winner and 3-time stakes winner, not 2 of those races, you can make a really big case that all 3 are Fool's Gold races.
Okay, well, after bashing 7 straight horses, I'm not bashing the 8th one. I like 1,000 Words a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I think they learned last time that 1,000 Words will be better if he's near the lead. And being that I don't think there's a lot of pace in this race, I think he's going to be forwardly placed, and he's going to come to the top of the stretch. He's probably going to get passed by Tiz the Law, maybe a couple of others. But here's the thing. If you look back in his PPs, while he's never run a tremendous race, and I agree, that last speed figure is, it's very inflated. I don't believe it for a second. This horse, despite, he was the favorite a couple times in these races, he doesn't give up that easily. This horse has got a little bit of fight. Whether you want to call that will, determination, Baffert juice, I don't know what it is. But this horse doesn't give up that easily, and being that the pace scenario I don't think is going to be too taxing. And also, this is the other Bob Baffert horse, the other horse, the uncoupled entry, one of my favorite angles in racing. I want him for 4th in here. I think you'd be silly as hell to have him top 2 or top 3. Have him to finish out the Super? Yeah, he's not that big a price. He's not that good. But I don't think anybody is that good in here. Let's move on to number 11, and that is...
Actually, one thing I want to mention about... one thing I just want to quickly mention about 1,000 Words is that post position number 10 is a great post position. So if he wants to get to the lead, he's in the right position to do it.
Anyways, number 11 is Necker Island. I feel like he was just being biased. The one thing that concerns me, I don't think he wants the 1.25 miles. I do not think every time he was beaten by our collector. He was well beaten in that race. He just keeps fading. The longer he goes, he fades. I just don't think he wants a 1.25 miles. I just think there's much better horses in this race. He's probably going to be about 85 to 1 in this race, 80 to 1. One of the longest prices.
I don't want to waste too much time with this horse. I will make one thing, though. We'll get to attachment rate in a few minutes, but when I talk about attachment rate in my preview of him, common theme for Necker Island was he was running behind attachment rate. And when we get to attachment rate, I'm not the biggest fan of attachment rate. I don't think that he has too much ability to run super well in this Kentucky Derby. And Necker Island's been consistently running behind attachment rate. So I don't think that there's a way that Necker Island is somehow going to find some magical pixie dust to be able to run a really super race in the Kentucky Derby. He's just one of the immediate tosses for me. I didn't have many immediate tosses. He was one of the 3 or 4 immediate tosses.
Like Paul McCartney said, listen to what the man said, and Jack is totally right. I completely agree. He's a complete toss. Number 12 is the horse that I was ridiculed for totally leaving out in the Belmont Stakes, and sure enough, I was right. That's stretch running Sole Volante.
I'll say something about him. I will give him. I feel like he's very. I like him a lot in this race. I feel like he's just fast. Like, to be honest, this can be ridiculous, but I think he could be the best turf horse 3-year-old in the country. I think he's that fast. And if you get him back to that 133, but anyway, that's not on the turf. I'll give that Belmont a pass there. It was off a 10-day layoff, and they were just taking their shot, and he just did not want. He just was not even probably 60% in that race. So I'm gonna give him a pass there, but he has some strong races. Second behind King G, won Sam F. Davis, beat Independence Hall, who's a great stakes winner. Lost a chance, but that was early in the year. He's just very intriguing, to put it.
I think he's more of a short router. I feel like maybe I like to think that maybe he's just a miler. Maybe he could do better in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, or he could do, like, if Sammy's correct about the turf thing, he could do turf miling. I just don't think he likes the 1.25 miles. I don't know. It's like he had 1 mile and an eighth performance. The Belmont, you can say, yeah, he didn't like the 10-day layoff, but it wasn't. But yeah, he didn't do great at 1 mile and an eighth, and he seemed to do better at 1 mile and a 16th.
I'm actually going to go super in depth on Sole Volante because Sole Volante is one of the horses that I'm going to use spoil it. And if I'm correct on this, which I'm not, so never mind. I mixed up the Tampa Bay Derby. I thought that was 1 mile and an eighth, 1.16 miles. So just scratch that point. But Sole Volante, the point about the turf has been something that a lot of people have been making. And it really came about because Marcus Hirsch tweeted that, he thinks that Sole Volante could be the best 3-year-old turf horse in the United States, and that caused everyone to immediately jump on this horse wants the grass, this horse doesn't belong in the Kentucky Derby, all kind of stupid angles like that. And
he does deserve to be in the Kentucky Derby.
People who understand the way that Patrick Biancone trains his horses, he runs them on turf, he works them out on turf. I saw that point be made on the internet that he hasn't worked on dirt since June. That's fine. That's the way Patrick Biancone trains his horses. He's undefeated on the turf. I understand that. But this is a horse that has 2 really, really good efforts in graded stakes races on the dirt. He would not be winning and running consistently on the dirt if he did not want the dirt. I will go into all of his dirt efforts. His first start, 3rd behind Chance It and As Seen on TV. Chance It, already a stakes winner, As Seen on TV. Graded stakes placed horse. Not great horses, but that was also his first start on dirt, so I'll give him a pass for that. Sam Davis was a really good effort. Beat Independence Hall, as Sammy already mentioned. Won that race. That was a graded stake race. Closing in the Tampa Bay Derby. Very slow pace to run into, and like I mentioned, I'm looking for horses that like to close and didn't need a pace to run into. I was really impressed with King Guillermo after that race, but when the Belmont Stakes caused me to look more in depth towards Sole Volante, I was super impressed with that effort in the Tampa Bay Derby. If you see the way he closed, he didn't have anything to close into, and he closed it up really nice. If he wasn't in that race, King Guillermo would have won by more, and that's the only reason the margin of victory was not higher, because Sole Volante was a rocket in that race closing. His allowance win at Gulfstream, it was said about that race going into Belmont that he wasn't fully cranked up there. It was still a really impressive win over Ete Indienne, who's a graded stakes winner, and ran a good second to Tiz the Law in the Holy Bull. Chivalry is a stakes winner. He also beat Jesus' team, who also ran a credible 4th, and then Haskell ran a good second in the Pegasus. So he beat quality horses. That was a grade 3 level field in that race. Andrew was completely right. I always felt going into that Belmont that it was kind of strange. He was coming in here off a 10-day layoff. I was assured that it wasn't going to be a problem with him. I think we can look at that and say, maybe it wasn't the best thing for the horse. Ran 6th, but I will say that was a better 6th place finish in the Belmont than he will probably get credit for. Obviously, he was beaten by Tiz the Law. Know what Tiz the Law has done since then. Second to Dr. Post. I already talked about what Dr. Post had done. Third to Max Player, already mentioned what he did also. Pneumatic beat him 4th. I want to just quickly mention what Pneumatic has done. He was a good 3rd behind Max Player, beaten only a length in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Then he came back, was a stakes winner, the Pegasus Stakes at Monmouth, and 5th place, beating him. The final horse to finish ahead of him was Tap It to Win, who came back and ran 2nd in a Grade 1 race, albeit sprinting, but still 5 really good horses. Pneumatic is going to be live in the Preakness. Tap It to Win is going to be one of the top contenders for the Pat Day Mile. Also on this card, and like we already mentioned with the top 3, those are talented racehorses. So that was a better than advertised 6th place finish. I think, he has the time off now between the Kentucky Derby. He's been working with this in mind. I like him for one of my underneath plays. He's in the same category as Enforceable. I think he's going to be a big long shot. I think I'm going to get some good odds with him. I really like Soli Volante here.
Okay, Jack, and I don't like Soli Volante at all. I think he's going to have to work out a hell of a trip in this race. Unless they keep him closer, in which case he has a chance. But he had a pace to close into in the Belmont Stakes, and he lost by 15 lengths. I don't see how that race was any kind of impressive. I get it, it was off the 10-day layoff. There's no way he was ready. I just think, once again, he's too slow. Alright, let's move on to number 13, which is Attachment Rate, who's been getting a little bit of attention. And, of course, trained by the one daily king of Saratoga, Dale Romans, who finally got his win to secure 29 years in a row with a win at the spot.
I really don't. He's kind of a question mark to me. I know that might sound strange, but it really is. Because he's coming off one really good race. Is he going to be able to back it up? That's my real question with him. And also, I think, does the 1.25 miles concern anybody with this horse? I don't think it does for me. But I would need to. I'm gonna let him beat me, kind of in a way. I would need him. I want him to back that race up before I use him.
I think he's pretty good. I like him. I like Attachment Rate, if I'm being honest. I think he's a nice, consistent horse.
The thing I'll say about Attachment Rate is he definitely is consistent. He does like to run well in stakes races, but he's been beaten consistently in lower level stakes races, and I just can't be convinced that he's going to step up in the Kentucky Derby against some of the really talented racehorses in here. I mentioned with Necker Island, I don't even like Attachment Rate that much, and I can't see any reason why Necker Island would be able to win this race if he's losing to Attachment Rate. I think Attachment Rate is a solid graded stakes level horse. He'll definitely get a couple of graded stakes wins, at the very least some stakes wins in the future. I just don't think it's going to be here in the Kentucky Derby. That being said, Dale Roman's a personal friend of mine. Huge rooting interest for me with him in this race. I'd love to see him win for Dale, but don't think it's going to happen. But if it were to happen, that's the one reason why I'm really rooting for him. Outside of any of my picks, if Attachment Rate won the Kentucky Derby, I would not be upset. But looking at it from a logical perspective, he does run well, but I don't think that his running well in lower level graded stakes races is going to generate to running well in the Kentucky Derby.
Alright, so Attachment Rate. Dale Romans smoking that cigar in the Saratoga Winner's Circle. I think he was just dreaming that was Attachment Rate in the Winner's Circle and that he was in Kentucky instead. He looked very happy. I don't think he'll be doing that on Saturday. He's getting a little bit better every time. I like that. I like the consistency. You know me, I'm a very big consistency guy. But, once again, to Jack's point, been getting beat in these lower level stakes races. Nothing jumps off the page. Can't do anything with a horse like that in this race. Sorry. Let's move on to the 14, winning impression, and I believe that all of us agree that he's not making a winning impression.
What are you talking about? His 2 7th-place finishes in small stakes races are totally amazing, and I guarantee that he'll beat Tiz the Law.
He's got Dallas Stewart.
That's the one thing that is in his favor.
That I will say about this horse. If you are a long shot player, and you know, I talked about this last year when I did my Kentucky Derby preview. Dallas Stewart long shots run really well in the Kentucky Derby. If you look at that and want to play this horse, restrain yourself or tell someone to take your phone away or whatever betting medium you're using, because this horse does not, at least your horses like Golden Soul and Commanding Curve, who were the 2 Dallas Stewart long shots that ran second in 13 and 14, they gave some kind of indication that they could run a race like that. He does have a 3rd in the Arkansas Derby. Don't let that deceive you. He was 4th. He was only moved up because of the medication violation by Charlatan, which caused him to be DQ'd. We can debate that in a separate, whether or not that was warranted. We can debate that at a completely different time. Horse was 3rd, extremely well beaten by Charlatan. He does have a win this year. It was in an allowance at Oaklawn where he was much the best horse. It was one of the bad decisions at that Oaklawn meet to take him down. Shouldn't have come down in that race. But that's the only race that winning impression has run well this year. Like I mentioned, the only reason why I think anyone should even consider playing him is because Dallas Stewart does run really well with long shots at the Kentucky Derby. That being said, this horse does not give any indication that he's going to run well in this Kentucky Derby.
This horse is slow with a capital S. Number 15 is something I'm very used to. New York Traffic.
Hey, I'm walking here. Anyways, I think it's very obvious that he's the ultimate place horse. Like, 3 straight seconds, and 2 of them in pretty major Derby preps. He would have won the Haskell Invitational if it was just a stride longer. Because, it was either that Authentic really is not a good 1.125 horse, or Mike Smith was really careless. Probably both.
I think it's
but
both.
But New York Traffic got so close in the Haskell. He looked like the best horse in the race, not Authentic.
Authentic was probably the best horse. You put them in stretch to Authentic probably wins.
Oh, yeah, I think he was the best horse in the Haskell. I will stipulate, actually, the best horse going the 2 turns. I don't think that was Mike Smith looking around. I think that was just Authentic hit a wall, but we'll get to that when we talk about Authentic. This horse, as everyone on here has already mentioned, has run 3 really good seconds last out. I already talked about the Louisiana Derby a bunch. That was a merry-go-round. He was never going to get by Wells Bayou, but held on really nicely to be second in that race. Really, really good second in the Matt win behind Maxfield. He looked like he might get there throughout a lot of the length of the stretch. And then, very credible second behind Authentic. I think, he was really talented, yes, to close it up, but I think that was a lot of the story of it was just Authentic hit a wall. The race before that, the Risen Star, another example of a good third. He was beaten by Modernist and Major Fed, who, we talked about Major Fed. He didn't set a fast pace in there, and I think, those 2 horses were closer than they were in the Louisiana Derby, so that's why they were able to close into him. He's a horse that always runs a good race. The one thing that I will say that does concern me about him is he does get beat by better horses, and Maxfield was better than him on talent, Authentic better than him on talent, Wells Bayou better than him on talent, and that's the one thing that does concern me, but I think he's definitely a major contender to use underneath. I don't think he wins, though.
To be honest, in the Haskell, I don't even think he really was gaining. I think it was just Authentic tiring.
I think it was half and half there, but
yeah, I think it was. I agree. I think he was gaining a little bit, but it was also a little bit of Authentic. Just hit a wall.
I don't think it's the time to debate it now, but that's just my 2 cents on him. I don't think he's a win contender.
New York Traffic has been a horse that I've been following very closely since the beginning of the year, and I've always liked how he's run. He always gets in the money. And now, look, I'm not comparing him to Tiz the Law. Don't think for a second I'm comparing him to Tiz the Law. But remember how that kind of doubt was always surrounding Tiz the Law? He never ran a big fig. He's winning these races, but he never ran a big fig. Well, last time, New York Traffic finally ran his big fig in the Haskell. And he ran a super game race. He was best. He was wider than Authentic. That obviously counts for more than a nose. He was the best horse that day. Now, another thing, I don't think he's going to have any problem with the 1.25 miles. I think there are some shorter prices in here that may have a problem with a 1.25 miles. And I think that if there's a long shot, now, is he going to be a long shot? Are you going to get 20 to 1? Probably not, but you're probably going to get at least 10 to 1. And to me, 10 to 1 is not too bad of a price on this horse. I really think highly of him. I think he's got tenacity. He's brave. He gets beat by horses, but he loves to pick up those checks, and that's exactly who I'm looking for to get second in here.
And that's a horse you got to admire.
Number 16. I don't. NYRA. I'm all against this horse. I'm not in the hype. I'll never be in that hype. And he's gonna beat me every time. I'm never gonna pick this horse in this Kentucky Derby. To be honest, he's really pace dependent, in a way.
I think my biggest nitpick of him is that he's just unproven outside of California, which is always something I will always worry about and stress on a horse, because we all know stuff like Lava Man can always happen. But the other thing is, I think he'll like the 1.25 miles, and that'll play to his favor, because his defeats in the 1.16 races, like the San Felipe and the Shared Belief, he came up short. But in the Santa Anita Derby, he had just enough time. I think he'll like the extra distance. I'm just not sure he'll like the surface.
Oh, he can run all day. That's not.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever been a concern with Honor AP. He's by Honor Code. We know the AP Indy lineage. Those horses can run all day. The distance has never been a question for Honor AP. He got beat on his debut going 6 furlongs. I don't really think anyone is taking too much stock into that race. Just in terms of finish wise, looks really attractive. But I will mention it. Now, I was actually one of the very few people. I don't know how many people actually picked against him in the Shared Belief stage. I was one of the people who picked against him. Went with the wrong Baffert horse in that race, but we can discuss that at a different time. But just deconstructing his 3 starts and stakes races, they're just not impressive. I know that Andrew's a big speed figure guy, and I'm sure he'll hit on the regression in figure with him from the Santa Anita Derby in the Shared Belief. I'm just more going to talk about the visual of that race. Looking at the San Felipe, it was obviously his first career start, and I think on 1.16 Authentic is probably a superior horse to Honor AP. In the Santa Anita Derby, I'll talk about this with Authentic. I don't think the horse wants any part of 1.125 miles in a race like the Santa Anita Derby, or in any race in any facet. But Honor AP, he beat Authentic, who was obviously tired out. And behind him, Rushy's not that good. Anodor, I've talked about how he bombed. And then, the 3 horses underneath, Shooter Shoot, Friars Road, and Azul Coast, are not good racehorses. And I just was never I watched the race visually. And that was even before Tiz the Law's Belmont Stakes, when we had a 1.125 miles race by another top contender to compare that with. I was just never impressed by that race at all. Then his next start, the Shared Belief Stakes, he does have I don't want to say a valid excuse, because he obviously does want more ground, and that's a very easy excuse to give him. If it's 1.125 miles, yeah, he probably wins that race. But the point that I'll make is this: that loss for me is inexcusable. For him, if he's Kentucky Derby level, then he should have enough class to be able to beat Thousand Words a horse who I already deconstructed is not good. I already deconstructed Kiss Today Goodbye. And the fact that he only beat Kiss Today Goodbye by a half length is inexcusable for me in terms of this Kentucky Derby. That was an extreme example of this horse is not as good as people say he is if he can't beat, at the very least, I would have expected him to, win a race like that by a length or something like that if he was winning that race purely based on class alone. Now that he showed me he couldn't do that, can't use him in this Kentucky Derby. He's a complete pass for me. That's probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, but cannot use him. Very extremely turned off by that second place finish. I get the distance thing, but he should have been able to win that race on class alone.
Jack, you shouldn't be upset with yourself at all. I completely agree with you 100% on everything you said. I don't really care about the speed figure regression. I'm just thinking to myself, how the trips that this horse has had in his races. He's had the easiest trips every time. And that last
He's
race
pace dependent.
is just garbage. It's garbage.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is you hear, oh, it's a mile and a 16th. But, well, like Jack said, you're that much better.
He was
Derby
1
winner?
to 5. 1 to 5.
He was 1-9 going into the gate.
I said this before that race. That was the easiest 1 to 9, or it was 1 to 9 when I said it, but that was the easiest 1 to 9, 1 to 5 shot I've ever picked against. And I don't know why I was so convinced going into that race that he was going to lose. The other thing is going back to the Santa Anita Derby, and I forgot to make this point. If you go and you watch that, and one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of Frank Miramati as a race caller is he always overcalls races and throws around the term impressive and sweeping huge moves on far turns, throws those around way too much. The way that Honor AP moved off the turn in the Santa Anita Derby, it looked like he was going to draw off and win by a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
And the horse just never put any sort of run in the stretch. He only won by 2 3/4 lengths. With a move like that off the turn, I'm expecting a horse to open up and completely put so much ground between him and the rest of them, which he should have done. And, that's another reason why I was not impressed with the Santa Anita Derby. This horse's races have just not been impressive, and the reason I think that he's getting as much love as he is because everyone loves, and I've seen this in some of the comments on my YouTube channel. Everyone loves the John Sheriff's, the John Sheriff's, Mike Smith, the Zenyatta connections. Whenever you get those two together, everyone loves that angle. There's a lot of sentimental stuff behind this horse. AP Indy died this year. It would be a great story if one of his offspring came on to win the Kentucky Derby. But this is not the AP Indy offspring that's going to win the Kentucky Derby. I'll put that out there right now.
Especially with his name. His name is perfect for that kind of storyline. So
They actually changed his name. His name was Hollywood Heroes originally.
Oh well. But I feel like the way you described Honor AP just disappointing when it came to his moves in the stretch. I feel like he's an easily distracted horse. That's how I describe him. He feels like I have a feeling that he has a mind of his own, and when he's done running, he will just say he's done. And in the Santa Anita Derby, once he was in the lead, he was like, "All right, this is over. I'm not gonna do anything else today." Then in the Shared Belief, he just got so distracted. Like, he just dropped back, I don't feel like it. Then halfway through the stretch, like, okay, maybe I do feel like it. But it's too late.
Well, there's something that nobody has brought up yet about this horse. And 2 years ago, nobody would have thought about this. Okay? Now, there is something about this horse that you would think, oh my God, it's the Kentucky Derby. How great is this? Now, you don't believe Twitter all the time, but according to everybody on West Coast Racing Twitter, Mike Smith just blows lately. He's making crazy moves down the backstretch that he usually only saves for the turf, and now he's making them on dirt horses where he thinks he's on what's a good pace horse that Mike Smith rode? See, I totally ruined this.
This isn't Horsey Road, but I mean there is like some closing horses, like that whole Bobby's Kitten move. You know the one. He was last
Holy
300
Bull.
yards away. Actually, yeah.
Holy Ball,
I
yeah.
just thought of Holy Bull.
He thinks he's on Beholder in the P Classic. Or that was Gary Stevens, but just to use as an
Just bear with him.
analogy, it's inconceivable what he's been doing according to people on Twitter. Now, again, the source is Twitter. Believe what you can because Twitter's ridiculous. But most people know what they're talking about.
You know,
Okay.
I will offer a comparison. Probably most people notice this. Mike Smith blew 2 easy Breeders' Cup winners last year, Midnight Bisou and Omaha Beach. Those 2 horses were obviously the best horses in their Breeders' Cup races, and they lost completely due to rider errors. So, you know, I would put a little bit, you know, if you're a person, I don't like to cross out a horse or pick a horse purely based on a jockey, but if you're a person who that's absolutely the angle you take, 100%. Pass on Mike Smith because in his most, in a lot of recent big races, he's been blowing easy chances to it. And Honor AP is by no means a lock. Midnight Bisou was practically a lock in the Breeders' Cup Distaff last year. He blew that mount. Blew Omaha Beach.
Literally he blew it and let Blue Prize have it her way. That's kind of what he did. He just let them get away when there were so many other ways he could have done it that meant not letting the front runner have it their way.
You know, I love my man Joe Bravo. I love my man Joe Bravo, but I gotta say that was complete rider error by Mike Smith. And no disrespect to him, very happy that he got his first Breeders' Cup win, but Midnight Bisou should have been the winner of that race.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, everybody. Returning to the winner's circle is number 17, Tiz the Law. He is a three-year-old colt by Constitution out of Tiz Fizz by Tiz Now. Owned by Sakatoga Stable, trained by Barclay Tagg, and ridden by Manny Franco. The odds that those words will be said on Saturday are not 3 to 5.
2 to 5.
I think they're about 1 to 10. I think our Collector was the only horse that could have given him
I will say something,
any competition.
That on Twitter that's been annoying me a little bit, and it makes no sense. Oh, he has a 17 post. It's the curse. Like, it's... What did they ran that 17 post? 15 times? 20 times?
Screw the curses.
I'm glad you mentioned that because he doesn't... technically, he's not breaking from post 17. Jay Priven put a tweet out clarifying this. There's 18, only 17 right? Horses, so everyone shifts out of stall. So Tiz the Law is breaking from post 18.
They always leave the inside gate open when they can, when there's enough room.
A recent example, Orb was number 17. His saddlecloth number was 15, but he broke from post 16. So Tiz the Law
he was 16, and he broke from 17.
He was 15 and he broke from 16.
I know he was 16, Jack. I have that whole race in my mind because I told Dad to make a big bet on Verrazano and he killed me.
But Tiz the Law is breaking from post 18, so you can take, if you haven't seen that tweet from my friend Jay Priven, take that thought out of your head because he's not breaking from post 18.
But going back to Tiz the Law, do we even need to say anything else about this horse?
Nope.
146.
Should have been the 2-year-old champion.
148. 2 minutes. Who goes 2 minutes eased up? You don't see that. He could have broke Arrogate's record. He could have easily broke that if Manny Franco said, "Oh, I don't care. I'm going to ask him."
I will say one thing. I totally disagree with you. I don't think, guys. Also, you have to think, Arrogate was also not hit with the stick once in that Travers either. Okay? So God knows
Tiz
what
the
he
Law
could,
wasn't either.
So God knows what he could do. Sammy, hitting a horse isn't going to make him go 8 lengths faster. Is it going to make a horse get up for a triple when he loses by a nose and it costs my dad $1,000? Yeah, it's not going to make him go 8 lengths faster.
The whip kind of is ultimately not as useful as people say it is. Like, it is useful, but it isn't as useful as people are saying it is. It's more useful as a BDSM tool, but that's on a different note.
The one thing I will say about Tiz the Law is it's a pure shame that no, or two things that I'm gonna, give pity to the horse. Number one, it's a shame that he didn't run on the Breeders' Cup last year because that field would have been begging for mercy if Tiz the Law had gone there. I can't even imagine what the juvenile would have looked like. You would have never heard of Storm McCourt. You would have never heard of Anodor. Any of these horses out of that juvenile, Tiz the Law makes him completely irrelevant. The other thing is really unfortunate that this horse got screwed over by the pandemic. He should be a mile-and-a-half Belmont winner. I think he would have won the Triple Crown in a normal Belmont year. That can be debated at another time, but this horse on pure talent deserves to have a Triple Crown written next to his name. It's a shame that he's getting screwed over by 2020, but like we already mentioned, he's the best horse. There's really no need to go dig into any of his races. 4 for 4 this year. He's been more impressive each time. His one loss was at Churchill Downs, but he did have some very viable excuses in that effort. Champagne was really good. His maiden effort was spectacular. And there's just, he's got the sentimental connections. I'm sure a lot of people are going to remember the Saratoga connection, the funny side. This horse has everything going for him.
If he wins the Preakness, he's a Triple Crown winner in my hearts, just because he's done more than most Triple Crown winners have done. Like, think about it. Whirlaway is the only other Triple Crown winner ever to win the Travers. So, if he won the Preakness, I don't care that it wasn't done in the traditional way. That's still very impressive to win every major 3-year-old classic. But that's only if he does it.
I will say 3 things more about Tiz the Law. One thing is, I just want to give credit to Barclay Tagg. He's done a fabulous job with Tiz the Law. To keep that horse in form for over a year or so now is incredible. And the people who are wondering why he does not have that, how he does not have the track record for 146 at Belmont, well, horse who has it, his name is Secretariat.
And that was in the Marlboro Cup of 73. The first
You don't say any
Marlboro
more
Cup.
about the greatest horse of all time, Secretariat. 146 is a fabulous time.
Yeah,
and
that was one. He went 145 and 2, I think.
Yeah, it was like 145 and 2, I think. Yeah.
At
and
Belmont.
and also, with people argument, he hasn't beat anybody. Like, I think, what is he beating? Like 10 greatest stakes winners? I guess that's not enough.
The speed figures say it all. And
115. I don't think I've ever seen a higher number.
I think that his Belmont almost has too low of a figure. I think that Belmont was way more impressive than it comes back on paper. I know he only won by 4 lengths. He dusted that field. How often do you see mile and an eighth races at 146 and change at Belmont? That's very, very hard to do, no matter what shape the track's in.
Yeah, well, Jackson, it's really a shame he had to run during this pandemic, because he would have probably won the Triple Crown.
Yeah, when I found out the Belmont was gonna be ruined and made a mile and an eighth, I said there's no way that if he wins I can consider him a worthy horse along. Now he's still got 2 more races to go. And probably to be at the top of the heap, he's going to have to win that Breeders' Cup Classic, which to me he shouldn't have to. I would rather, if he loses this race, I'd love to see him run in the Jockey Club Gold Cup instead, personally, just in case he loses, because New York racetracks might open soon and I might get to see him. But this horse is special, and there is no way on paper he should lose. It's going to take something unforeseen, or it's going to take Jason Service racking up one of these other horses.
Still want to beat him. You can't. It's nearly impossible to beat a horse when the horse is naturally 2 seconds faster. You're going to need something ridiculous to happen for him to lose this race. I think he can fall 2 times. The manufacturer can fall, get back on him, and still win with like 600 pounds on him.
Well, here's one more point. Here's one more point that I will make for Tiz the Law. I mentioned that he did have some issues in the Kentucky Jockey Club. The two things that were talked about out of that race were the fact that he got trapped inside and that it was raining. It's not going to rain on Derby Day, and he's not going to get trapped inside because he's in post, whether you want to call it 17 or 18. He's in 18.
He's
not
very
going to have to
experience in the.
He's not going to. Well, I understand he was inexperienced, but if you're just looking at that race in a vacuum, he's not going to get trapped inside, and it's not going to be a wet track, so he's not going to have to worry about that. It is also worth mentioning that, just if you're a racing fan, you got to root for this horse because the connections have already come out and said they're going to run him next year, which is great for horse racing, that we're not going to have another horse just immediately shipped off to stud, and absolutely 100% just Tiz the Law is just a horse that you can root for. But I did forget to mention the one thing about the excuses. Those are not going to factor. It's not going to rain, and he will not, unless something extremely unforeseen happens, like aliens teleport him onto the rail. He's not going to get stuck on the rail.
Any last thoughts or no?
No, I think we're ready to get on to Authentic.
Oh, Authentic.
Can we all just agree that this horse is not going to last?
The owners said, they interviewed the owners today, and they said that the horse. What did they say? I forgot what they said. Something about the horse.
Let me give out the statistics for. Let me give out a statistic for Authentic that I think is really telling, and it's not necessarily related to him. He, as has probably been well documented, he's by Into Mischief, and anyone who knows pedigree, knows breeding really well, knows that Into Mischief horses do not win at 1.25 miles. The exact statistics are no Into Mischief has ever won any stake race on the dirt past 1.125 miles or 9 furlongs. And only one horse by Into Mischief has won longer than 9 furlongs on any surface. And that there's a single horse that's done that. And that happened this year in a stake at Gulfstream. Authentic does not fit the bill of a horse that can go 1.25 miles. I think the Haskell proved it. He hit a wall mid-stretch, and if New York Traffic was not as wide as he was, New York Traffic's the winner of the Haskell. Everyone's going to beat up Mike Smith for that ride, and I understand it, but it was not a Mike Smith thing. It was Authentic is not handling distance thing.
Yeah, everything's stacked against him. He comes off as a dancing candy, the horse that's in the lead early and then he's off. That, or a more extreme example, Triniberg.
Now, I think he's more of a Golden Sense.
Yeah, Golden Sense is the more obvious example, but I like Dancing Candy better because Dancing Candy was a real front runner.
But for Authentic,
like shorter distances, and later was proven better at shorter distances.
I remember what the owner said. They said that he could have stopped paying attention, and they're hoping it's not the limit. What everybody's saying is the distance limitations, but I think it's the distance limitations here.
He's not less than 1.25 miles. That's all I got.
I'll also say that I think New York Traffic's actually, but like people are gonna bet New York Traffic because they see him closing, but he really honestly like what Jack said, what we both said, it was like half and half. I think Authentic's gonna have the lead 6 furlongs in, and everybody's gonna start to pass him. I think he's gonna finish like 15th in this Derby.
He is Golden Sense 2.0, and we can have an individual argument over who's better. I'm not ready to have that argument. I think it's irrelevant to do that at this particular moment in time, but look at what Golden Sense did in the Kentucky Derby, and you can find what Authentic's going to do in the Kentucky Derby. He's going to be off the board running up the track. Even if they give him an uncontested lead, he's not going to last. He's going to get run down in some way. I see no circumstance where Authentic wins unless 5 speed horses stumble. 5 horses, when I say speed, I mean horses that are going to be anywhere close to him. Tiz the Law, for some reason, gets taken out of the race. And, at this point, we're just getting ridiculous. So, just going to be easy. This horse is not winning the Kentucky Derby. And I don't think he's finishing in the top 10.
Top 10? Wow. I'm not going to go that far, but okay, Jack.
I mean, I don't know. I think not finishing the top 10 is authentic enough as a result.
I think he finishes about 14th, 15th, 16th. About real.
Golden Sense finished around that
He finished
range.
17th. I can
Golden Sense
honestly
was
see
also right next to Palace Malice in Verrazano.
Palace Malice is one of the best named horses. Who doesn't like a horse named Palace Malice?
He also turned out to be probably the best horse from that Derby long term. I know Will Take Charge won the 3-year-old championship, but Palace Malice ran some nice races as a 4-year-old after that.
And then he lost it at age 5. He lost his touch at age 5.
Well, it all started with the Whitney when he was 4. He just didn't show up. I don't know what happened. He had a great
I will
trip
say something about. I will give Churchill credit here. They got a good card always for Derby Day. But the one thing I will disagree with them is why would they get rid of the Churchill Down Stakes?
Because the Forgo was run last week. That's why they took it off their card.
That answers it.
Yeah, there was the point of splitting up the sprinting competition when there already isn't that much of a sprinting division. Like the best sprinters can all be put in one race rather than split them up so far.
I do just want to ask one question. How are we doing on time? Because if we're not super long on time, I did just want to ask if we could throw in a couple minutes of Kentucky Oaks talk, because it's a top heavy race, but we can have a few minutes of banter about the top 2 if time warrants it.
First of all, we're going crazy on time. We're almost at an hour and a half. And second of all, we can do that. However, we did not really give out our top 4s yet, so I want to do that. We got to get through that
I completely
first.
forgot about that. My bad.
I'm gonna go first. I'm taking control. Obviously, I like Tiz the Law. Who doesn't? I like New York Traffic for second. I like Max Player third and 1,000 Words fourth. Now, how are you gonna make money with those selections? It's gonna be pretty hard. Don't expect a giant return if any of these things hit. But this is my idea in the race. These are just ideas. I'm not playing this race. I wouldn't touch the Derby with a 30-foot barge pole. I wouldn't touch the Oaks with a 200-foot barge pole. Okay.
I wouldn't touch it with a twin spire.
Oh, that's even better. Alright, so here's my ideas for the Derby if you're going to bet. Dollar Exacta Box 15-17. That's New York Traffic and Tiz the Law. Another Dollar Exacta Box 17. Tiz the Law over 2-10-15, which is Max Player 1,000 Words. Even though I don't think 1,000 Words is going to get second, I just wanted to include it as a backup. And then, of course, New York Traffic. So if it comes in 17-15, you'll hit the Exacta twice. Also, 50-cent triple 17 over 2-10-15 over 2-10-15. That's $3. And then a dime super box 2-10-15-17. So I'm only using 4 horses in all these bets. Comes out to an almost unbeatable $10.40. Not that big of an investment for this Kentucky Derby, mainly because I don't think you should be investing a lot in this Derby, and I think playing anybody to win in this race is a bad idea.
I'll go next. I got my top 4. I did take a route opposite of Andrew. I did try to manufacture some value in here. Tiz the Law, obviously on top. I'm going to go with King Guillermo, go down with the ship, put him second. And then I'm going to have Soli Volante and Enforceable, the 2 horses that I think are, at least to me, are really attractive, provide some good value. I'm going to throw them, Soli Volante third, Enforceable fourth. But there's a ton of different rounds you can go if you're looking to get a big long shot underneath. But that's one thing I will say is look for a long shot that's over 40-1 and do something with that horse, throw a show bet or something. That's the one advice that I have is look for the horse that's going to outrun their odds.
You don't think there's going to be bridge jumping in here, Jack?
I'm just saying, look for the horse that's going to outrun their odds. I do that every Derby, and last year we had Country House. Year before that we had Instilled Regard. I'm not going to go through every single Kentucky Derby, but That's what I think.
I mean, with the show
Golden
money,
Soul.
the Tiz the Law. If he finishes in the top 3, he's going to take your show money away, even if a horse comes in at 40-1.
I mean, it worked out pretty well for me last year because I got a pretty good return on investment with Country House to show. So that's speaking from experience, but that's just my 2 cents.
Well, if Tiz doesn't hit the board, you're in damn fine shape.
What my thinking was, I'll do what Jack does for here, my long shot play. It would be Enforceable. I really think this horse could be the Country House, the Instill Regard. Who was 2018? I mean 2017.
I think that was
Blanking.
Battle of Midway.
Battle of
Midway, up
Midway.
the rail. Yeah.
2018 was Instilled Regard.
Yeah. But
And
the only year
after
that
that-
really hasn't been a big long shot was 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that
2018
actually is
was
fair. That actually is fair.
2015 was a long shot player's nightmare. There's no horse above 30-1 in the top 5.
Nope.
But Enforceable I feel like fits that profile. I feel like he fits it more than Finnick the Fierce, because I think he's a better horse. But I just think he fits it, so I'm going to go with Tiz the Law, then Enforceable, then Sole Volante, and then I'm going to round it out with, find the horse. Probably going to put in, oh my God, I'm blanking on the horse's name. Oh, Max Player for 4th.
I think honestly, Winning Impression has a better shot at being the archetype that you're talking about, just because he's trained by Dallas Stewart, and twice in a row he's gotten seconds with nobodies, Golden Soul and Commanding Curve.
I will say something about King G. Even if Tiz the Law is beaten and King G's common, it would just be a cool story to see the connections of that win, especially for Sammy Camacho, a young guy who's very talented, to get his opportunity in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm not going to be surprising anyone when I say I'm putting Tiz the Law in front. And I'm going with you on this, Andrew. NY Traffic in second place. But after that, I'm going to take a bit of a risk. I'm going South Bend and Mr. Big News.
Okay. Well, those are our selections for the Derby. If anybody wants to talk about the Kentucky Oaks, they can say it after my 2 cents right now. I think this is a watching race. I think this is nothing more than a watching race. If you put any money on this race, unless you play one of those multi-race bets, which I don't recommend playing anyway, because I don't have a lot of money like most of these guys do, I think you're sick in the head if you play the Kentucky Oaks. I think this is a 3-horse race. I think those 3 horses are going to run 1, 2, 3 in some order. The Gamine, does she get the distance? Does she not get the distance? I don't care. I'll be watching to find out. I'm not playing any of this stuff this weekend, but even if I had a ton of money and you gave me a free bet, I would not bet this race. Go ahead, guys.
I will say something about yours. Yeah, it's more of an enjoyment race. Sometimes you just gotta watch. Sometimes it's not bettable. You just gotta enjoy it. Another race that's also enjoyable, this might be off topic, is the 8 Bells. Monday Call and 4 Grace. That's gonna be a great matchup. Yalishiba is gonna be also good. You're gonna have a lot of enjoyable races, but not bettable, if that makes sense.
Mean annoys me just because of the what could have been factor. Because no matter what she does, everyone is always going to be thinking about she probably was on drugs.
I will disagree with that point. I haven't heard anyone make that point. I don't want to get into the debates with, the Gamine and Bob Baffert thing. Gamine's obviously, I don't actually want to say obviously, but I think purely based on talent, she's the best horse in the race. But I don't think she's going to get the distance. But like Andrew said, we're going to find out on Friday. There is one race, I know I wanted to talk about the Kentucky Oaks, but there is one other race that I think probably is the most, you can make the most cases, I don't want to say this is the most bettable, but this is a very fun race on the Friday card. It's the Yalishiba, 1 1/16. You've got a ton of horses in here. that are all really good and definitely some really fine angles. You've got the two horses that are right now the first and second choice by my standards, and McKinsey, both of them proven horses, graded stakes level competitors. But you've also got horses like Mr. Freeze, who's a graded stakes winner earlier this year, was second in the Pegasus World Cup also. And then you've also got one other horse that I do want to highlight, Silver Dust, who always runs a good race, was a really good third in the Blame Stakes, good third in the Stephen Foster, won the Mine Shaft earlier this year, better than advertised fourth in the New Orleans Classic. He's an angle for that race, but just two races that I wanted to hit on that card. Obviously, we're going to see something special with Gamine. I think Swiss Skydive is the best filly going 2 turns, and we'll find out whether or not Gamine can get the distance. So that's it for what I have. If anyone else has anything else that they want to add, that's it for me.
I just wanted to say that, like, where I got the whole thing from, I know you haven't heard it from, but in sim horse racing, that general community doesn't like Bob Baffert, so they do bring that up anytime Gamine's mentioned. So that's kind of where I thought more people thought that, but I guess I was wrong. But that's just what I think.
I mean, it's just the accusation. It's a very ticky-tack accusation, and I'm not a person who likes to lay my neck on the line for Bob Baffert. I don't dislike the guy. I don't overly love the guy. But just, I just think that, number one, people don't really put that much into that disqualification. Her 2 best races were, it's ironic, at least to me, her 2 best races were the race where she was, has not come back with any positive test in. So I think it's a very ticky-tack, making something out of it because it's Bob Baffert. But that's beside the point. We won't have that debate here.
Although I will say,
Yeah,
hey, I started first. Just listen to Kevin Cox. He has come up with the greatest nickname in the history of horse racing. Lidocaine Bob. I will be calling Bob Baffert Lidocaine Bob for the rest of his career.
It sounds like an actual racehorse, not a pun, but just an actual racehorse. And as they're coming down the bend, it's Lidocaine Bob making an impressive move on the fuck. That's only if the caller at Santa Anita was calling it, though.
Oh, but going back to Oaks, I will say something about Kenny McPeak. That 2 things I liked what he did. One thing I did like is his trolling. That was funny.
But trolling, I'm kind of behind on all this, but please tell me.
They had a Derby saddle, or the Derby cloth, and he put it on Swiss Skydiver when she went for a jog one morning.
Oh, that joke? Oh, that son of a... you...
And I also like how they changed the rider. Yes, they changed the rider again, but Mike Smith was originally on Swiss Skydiver, but they kept Tyler Gaffalione on her.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
All right.
Swiss Skydiver doesn't mind. Oh, sorry. Let me just make this one point really quick. Swiss Skydiver doesn't mind a jockey change. There was only one race in her streak of really good graded stakes where she had the same jockey, and that was between the Santa Anita Oaks and the Bluegrass when she carried Mike Smith twice. She doesn't mind a jockey change, so that's just one other point. But I'm all out. I'm going to shut up now and give him Andrew the opportunity to sign off now.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to our overly long Kentucky Derby and 2 or 3 minutes of Kentucky Oaks and other races preview. The post time in the background of this video for the first race is incorrect. I did put up a caption at the beginning of this video correcting it. It is 11 a.m. It is not 11:30. It is 11 a.m. flat Eastern Daylight Time. 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Do not get that wrong like I did, in case you're interested in the first race. That being said, thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Jack. If you want to watch the Kentucky Derby, you can watch the Less Than Pleasing coverage on NBC. I think they come on at 2:30 on NBCSN. Not sure what time they come on the network, but you can use your TV guide for that. It's not a big deal. If you're like me, you'll probably be watching it on the simulcast network up till 2 minutes to post. And more importantly, don't forget to watch Saratoga, because Saratoga is going to be the track that I'm going to be watching the most on Saturday. I cannot wait for that 1.25 mile Woodward handicap. They finally did something good with a race. They actually lengthened it and they made it back into a handicap. It's amazing. They did something right for the sport. Let's see if it pays off. Hope you guys enjoy all the racing action. We'll have another preview later in the week for the Woodward at some point. Not sure yet. That being said, thanks. Good luck, everybody. And remember, pay your bills first. And enjoy Americana and horrible fashion from people's homes at its finest for the Kentucky Derby.